That's why I was confused. I was gonna ask you. That photo. And this, yeah. It'd be crazy because we just had a meeting. We have someone unless they're trained online, attending virtually as an attendant. You want to give it a couple of more minutes? Yeah, just so I know, if other committee members show up. Hi, good evening, everyone. We're just giving a couple of minutes for other committee members to join us. Thank you for waiting. Yeah, yeah. I that was opened up or everybody I mean to watch on YouTube. I just need someone to scroll through. Okay. So far we only got one. That you only said it in so like the questions or concerns. Yeah, okay. I think we're gonna, I don't know, after our presentation. Okay. Okay, perfect. Yeah, okay. Okay. No, but I'll follow up with similar. I mean, I can. Well, you know, more than. Yeah, I think people want, begin to find out about the delay in construction. for instance, how about it push back?
In the meeting at the end of the year,
Yeah,
and then that picture will be something.
yeah. And what was the other, oh, choose the contact person returning this again? Yeah. In one of the parking. Outside of pressure park, yeah. It's like the ramp repair.
I think it was
Pressure park line, there's everything, really pretty good.
that was probably one of the.
I can ask him. Carry Conti's on Monday. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to be calling roll for the Parks Committee members. When you're hearing your name, please say state present. If you're joining us online, please unmute yourself, state you're present, and then mute yourself again. Please note, committee members who are attending online do not count towards quorum. Diana Aguilar,
Present.
Juan Chavez,
Present.
Silvio Agosto, Carrie Conti.
I'm here.
You do not count towards quorum. Maria Cruz, Danny DeBear, Diana Gonzalez, Nicole Wong, Jeremy Kaplan, Erin Keith, Paul Mack, Rosie Moda, and Sam Sierra. Julio, I see you're present. I have you down as present, but you don't count towards quorum. Okay. All right, you can start. I will.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Diana Aguilar, and I'm the chair of the committee. And to my right is Esteban.
Hi, everyone. I'm the vice chair of the committee.
Right into things. Up first on our agenda, we have a presentation from NYC Parks on the neighborhood tree planting program. Mitch Barron, I think, is joining us virtually, so we'll hand it over to him.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. My name is Mitch Barron. I'm senior forester for tree planting in Brooklyn at New York City Parks. So I work or oversee and work alongside a team of foresters who handle all tree planting across the borough of Brooklyn and really across the 5 boroughs in New York City. And I'm here to talk today about our neighborhood tree planting program, which is a new approach to tree planting that New York City Parks is in the process of rolling out to be fully rolled out in about a year from now in spring 2027. And I know I was supposed to give this presentation a couple weeks ago. Unfortunately, I was overseas on a vacation, and then the conflict in Iran canceled my flights back. So I got stranded overseas and had to postpone this. So I'm both excited to be back here in the US and excited to be talking here to Community Board 7 about tree planting. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen. We are not a Zoom organization, so I want to make sure I do this correctly. Okay. All right, my presentation showing successfully on your side?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thanks so much. So first I'm going to go really big picture and talk about all of the trees in New York City and who's responsible for them. So about half of New York City's trees are managed by New York City Parks. The rest are managed by private landowners, by the state or federal government, by institutions like universities or schools. But about half of the trees in New York City are managed by New York City Parks. The vast majority of those are in natural area forests. So just like traditional wild forests that you have in like the large parks in Staten Island or in the large parks in the Bronx in parts of Prospect Park. A much smaller percentage of those, but the ones that we and you interact the most with on a day-to-day basis are those trees that are planted alongside the streets and inside our city's parks. So those are only about 14% of the trees that Parks manages, but like I said, those are the trees that my team plants and that some of our colleagues deal with pruning and removing and treating in the streets and in the parks. So to talk about what we're doing to make this number bigger, since 2022, we've planted almost 20,000 trees in Brooklyn. The majority of those were on the streets, where we planted about 17,000, just over 2,000 in parks. And within Community Board 7 in Brooklyn, we've planted just over 1,000 trees. So many of those were the new cherry trees and other trees planted in Sunset Park itself. And then but several hundred of the others were planted in smaller parks and playgrounds, and of course along the streets and avenues throughout the community board. My next slide, sorry, my keyboard's a little sticky. So, okay, this is where I was intending to go. This is the map of those 1,000 trees planted since beginning of 2022. So you can see, of course, the cluster in the western half of Sunset Park, as well as the distribution of street trees across the entire community board. So to talk about neighborhood tree planting and why it's different, why it's a new approach, first I have to talk about what we were doing before and why it wasn't always working. So we, in the past, were working off of a variety of different mandates or priorities. So one of those was public service requests. So constituents like yourselves would submit requests to 311 telling us where a new tree was needed. Someone from my team would go inspect that location, determine if we could plant a tree there, if it met all of our standards. Within 6 months to 3 or 5 years, we would have a tree end up at that location. We also had environmental justice targets related to those parts of the city that experience the impacts of extreme heat the most. So doing kind of targeted larger scale plantings in those areas. Council members and sometimes borough presidents could give us discretionary funding to complete special projects in their districts. We also had these kind of other buckets of just like bureaucratic stuff like tree fund, tree replacement, restitution, et cetera, et cetera. So we had a variety of competing priorities that kind of each planting season, each year, we were trying to balance all of our tree plantings to make sure we're making progress towards all of those. This resulted in some issues, some inefficiencies. The biggest one, and probably the one that, like, as you know, concerned involved constituents you noticed the most, and is that it was very difficult for us to provide predictable service delivery, especially in response to 311 service requests. We had a backlog of, at the time this was prepared, about 42,000 service requests. And that was even though we were planting, 15,000 trees every fiscal year. We still had this massive backlog of service requests. And it, like I said earlier, it would sometimes take us, 3 years or more to be able to respond to it, just because we had so many service requests, as well as all of these other priorities that we, in some cases, were legally committed to finishing on a certain timeline. One of those being our kind of environmental justice commitments to plant out those areas most impacted by extreme heat. So even though we were offering this, essential public service to the constituents, citizens, residents of New York, we were not able to deliver on it with any meaningful consistency or predictability. So in order to solve all of these problems, we are in the process of shifting to a new approach that we are calling neighborhood tree planting. With neighborhood tree planting, the basis of our strategy will be that our team will go to discrete geographic areas across the city. So that might be a portion of a neighborhood, a portion of a community board. We will walk every single block in that geographic area. We will identify every possible location where we can plant a tree. While we're doing that, we're also going to look at every tree that needs to be removed, every stump that needs to be removed, any old existing tree beds that, for whatever reason, don't meet our current standards for planting. And we will plant all of those trees, remove all of those old dead trees, replace them when possible. With those old, empty, unplantable tree beds, in some cases, we will restore them with concrete. That will only be if we can't identify community partners who are interested in kind of maintaining it as a garden. Because, while on the one hand, closing over an empty tree bed does remove an eyesore from the landscape, it can, remove tripping hazards, et cetera. It also is, feels contrary to what our mission is of kind of reducing the impervious cover over the city, of, providing ecological benefit to the city. But so wherever it's not possible to find an alternative use, we will close these implantable tree beds. So this new targeted approach, where we go to these defined geographic areas and complete all of this comprehensive work in them, this does require us to discontinue the intake of public tree planting service requests. So all existing 311 tree planting requests have been closed out, and we are not taking new ones. But anywhere that someone has requested a tree in the past or could request a tree in the future, they will be captured when this new approach takes us to that neighborhood, since we are looking at every block, every sidewalk of every block. So this will allow us to work across the city comprehensively and predictably. As I'm going to show you in kind of a future slide, we have a plan over, these geographic areas covering the entire city, telling you exactly which year we're going to be in a specific geographic area. It's going to be more efficient because rather than dashing around to a bunch of service requests that might be scattered throughout the borough, we know we're sending the foresters from our team, we're sending our contractors to exactly one geographic location, doing all the work we can in there, and that's it. And hopefully this kind of increased efficiency will also lead to cost savings, because our contractors don't have to themselves, pay their crews to drive between all of these sites to plant one tree here and then one tree on the other side of the borough. So in turn, this will be a more effective use of public dollars to comprehensively serve these neighborhoods. The planning out of where we're going to go first is, goes back to our environmental justice goals. So we are going to make sure that we're targeting those areas that are most impacted by extreme heat. But we're also making sure that every community board is going to get serviced with it, at least once every 3 years. So a part of Community Board 7 will be serviced every 3 years under this cycle. And then the entire cycle will be about 9 years long. So our intent is after 9 years, we visited every sidewalk in the entire city. And at the time we visited there, planted every possible tree and done this other possible tree work. So in practice, what's this going to look like? So again, let's go back to how we were operating before. This is, a typical New York City block. We have a couple mature trees, a couple small trees, a stump, a few unplantable tree beds. We might have received a request to replace this one small dead tree. That would come in via 311. A forester from my team would go visit this, inspect it, approve a new planting here, and we would plant a new tree here. But we wouldn't do anything about the stump, about the other 2 tree beds next to it. We would just replace this one tree. Under this new approach, even though it won't be in response to a service request, when we are planning to come to this block, to this neighborhood, we would walk this entire block. We would identify that other stump we can remove and replace with a new tree. The next tree bed next to the driveway, that's too close to the driveway, it would impede sight lines, so we can't plant a tree there. So we would restore that with concrete. The next 2 tree beds, we would plant new trees in. And then there's another empty tree bed here close to the crosswalk. It's too close to the crosswalk for us to plant. Again, a tree here would impede sight lines for drivers and pedestrians, but because a community member is maintaining it, that one we would not pave over with concrete. We would leave it as, impervious surface to absorb stormwater and to provide community beautification here. So it is taking us some time to get here because we have a lot of existing obligations. We're working with existing contracts that have already been procured that aren't really geared towards this new approach. So right now, we started in 2024 and ending at the end of this calendar year, we're in what we're calling a transition phase, where we kind of complete all the existing obligations we have, where we work with the contracts that were already in procurement, and as well as just kind of lay the groundwork to do like the full scale implementation of this in 2027. The full scale implementation starting next year, this is when we'll really begin focusing really on just these discrete geographic areas kind of over the full 9-year cycle. I know this map here is probably a little too small for you to look at the block where you live or the block where your mother lives that you're interested in or whatever. All of the detailed maps are available on our website, and I can share the link where you can view those as much as you want and view all the other information we have about this. I'll share that with the community board, who can, of course, blast it to the rest of the members. Sorry. Did you lose my presentation?
Yeah, we can't see it.
Okay. Okay. Is it back yet?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the same map, just broken down a little more. So the purple on the far left is the kind of a plan over the transition area where we're closing out current obligations while still switching to a somewhat more targeted approach. And then the 3 green maps show the first 3, second 3, and final 3 years of the full 9-year cycle, through which we'll plant, every block across the entire city and the entire borough. This I won't spend too much time on. This is just, part of the steps of getting there. So, engaging our different partners to kind of fine tune elements of the program, receive feedback on how we can implement it better, distributing press releases, updating our information on our website, closing out existing service requests. And then about a year from now in spring 2027, we'll begin full scale implementation of this new strategy. So that's the whole presentation I have. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time. And I see a hand raised from John.
Questions here?
Yeah. My first question, thank you, Mitch, is what is the process for expanding tree beds for trees that might need some extra room? Is that also considered in this block by block process?
We would like to expand our ability to do that. Right now, the funding that we have available primarily supports just tree planting and removals, and then some related incidental work. But as funding allows, which might be kind of like either a broad ask from us, or it could be allocated to us by council members or by borough presidents, we will seek to expand tree beds to improve the life of our existing mature trees. But that is kind of a question of funding, because right now almost all of our funding is just tied directly to planting.
And then my next question is, what is the species selection that goes into the trees that are planted, new trees?
Yeah, so one of the big emphases of our program, and that we've done a lot of work to build over the past 10, 20 years, is ensuring that we have a very wide palette of species to choose from. And so we work directly with nursery growers to provide us with those trees. And those allow us, having a diverse selection of trees allows us to tailor the specific species that we choose for a given location to that location. So following a principle of right tree, right place. And the factors that my team evaluates in making those decisions, those are things like, one of the biggest ones is just, how harsh are the urban conditions at a given location? Because a quiet residential street, there are a lot of trees that can survive and thrive there. It's different on somewhere like Fifth Avenue and Sunset Park, where there's a lot of truck exhaust, there's heavy pedestrian traffic, there's only some trees that are really well equipped to surviving in that kind of environment. So that's something we take into account. Of course, we take into account the amount of physical space that the tree has to grow, both at the sidewalk level and overhead. And if that space is limited, whether by electric wires or by a kind of close-set building facade, we'll choose something that stays more compact at maturity, whereas if there's a lot of space for it to grow, that'll be something larger. when we're planting nearby the coast, we look at something that can handle salt spray or occasional saltwater flooding. And then we're also, we also are concerned with aesthetics too. So if the whole block is a lovely array of one species, we'll go ahead and make sure when we replant we're doing the same species. So it's a combination of kind of infrastructural factors, biological factors relating to the trees, characteristics itself, and kind of like aesthetic design factors.
Cool, thank you.
All right, John, if you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. So, thank you, Diana and Esteban, and Mitch. Thank you for your presentation. I'm really glad to see parks trying to, realize efficiencies to help improve the city tree canopy. And I had some follow-ups about some of the specific things you mentioned. So you mentioned about how certain spots are unfillable nowadays. On my block, there's a whole lot of those. They have gas lines, electric lines, water lines. And we've been told that none of those can be filled with new trees. So since you mentioned that they're going to be going around and closing those up, did you have a timeline for when that's going to happen? Or is that too soon to say?
Yeah, so the closing up of implantable tree beds, that will happen at the same time that a given block is scheduled for planting and for the kind of other related services. So that would be a matter of kind of just looking at where your block is on the map, and it might say 2027, it might say 2031, and that would be when it's on schedule.
Okay, so another follow-up on that. Is there any consideration for areas where the sidewalk has been damaged by the trees? For instance, where I live, the sidewalk was damaged by the root and is now, loose. It's a big trip hazard. Our neighbor also has the sidewalk damaged by the trees. I did, under your old process, put in the 311 and got a message from Park saying, yes, we recognize that that's a problem, but it's not as much of a problem as some of the other ones out there, even though it's, it is getting worse all the time. But they said that it's not as much of a problem. So, I don't know what to make of that, but I would say it's very dangerous, and happy to, send evidence if it helps you all. But is there any consideration of that in your evaluating which areas get filled in first? Because like I said, not only ours, but there's other ones where the roots have made those damages.
Yeah, so our specialized program for sidewalk repair, they work in the same office from me, but they're separate from me, so I can't comment with like a great deal of specificity on the work that they do. I know they, to kind of a greater degree than we are kind of constrained by need and by funding, and so they do end up having this prioritization system that results in you getting messages back like the one you said, even though the reality is for you and for your neighbors, that is the one that matters and the one that's dangerous. In terms of our approach to closing implantable tree beds, it is going to be driven in the end just by the kind of scheduled cycle of approach to work across the entire city, just because that's going forward, like the kind of basic prioritization method that we're using for any kind of work, and for making sure that we're kind of efficiently and equitably allocating our resources across the city.
Okay, but you're not continuing the old process for filling in ones that were damaged, even though you're closing out the tree requests that were the 30,000 backlog. Is that right?
The requests that we're closing and no longer taking relate exclusively to requests to plant brand new trees. We are still taking requests for things like repairing damaged sidewalks, for things like removing dead trees, pruning trees for risk mitigation or for building clearance, etc.
Okay, cool. And then the next thing I was going to say is you also mentioned that there's certain legal obligations for tree planting. As I recall, there are new buildings of a certain size have to have a certain number of trees, or they can also pay to have those trees somewhere else. Is there any way to check on whether that happened? Because there was a new building that went up by us that, according to the records from Parks, should have had 4 trees and they put up
Mhm.
0.
Mhm.
Now Parks has gone in and added your own trees
Mhm.
just this
Mhm.
December, but
Mhm.
I don't know, you know, we want maximum trees, so
For sure, yeah.
is there a way to check on that, or?
Yeah. I don't believe there's like a dedicated way for the public to check on it, but if you want to know about the status of a specific address, you can reach out to me via the community board and we can look into it and provide information.
Okay, and then one last very small thing. The speaking of the new trees planted, there were a
Mhm.
bunch in the portion of the area where I live, or portion of the district where I live in, planted just this December,
Okay.
but some of them have now red tape on them.
Hmm.
Does that mean that the tree didn't make it over the winter, or is there some other reason that that would be on there?
That's not, I'd have to look at a picture of exactly the red tape that you're seeing. It's not something that we use to signify this tree has failed or anything like that. So,
Okay.
that's not a typical tagging system that we use. So I don't know offhand without knowing exactly what it looks like, what it might be.
All right. Well, I'll have you get pictures and send it to the board.
Okay.
But thank you, Mitch.
Yeah, thank you.
Our next question is from Assemblyman Chang. If you can unmute yourself and.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. This is a funding issue right now. So, as for my state, I couldn't help you too much about it, but for the city next fiscal funding, were you able to do your cycle for your 3rd year in Sunset Park? Do you have enough funding for the next fiscal year to complete what you have to do schedule?
So as far as planting goes, we are fortunate to be in a position where we are at the moment quite well funded, to the tune of being able to plant about 15 to 18,000 trees every fiscal year. Right now, I think we have some funding in place for beyond that, and I think we haven't started really approaching the question of what's our funding going to look like in like fiscal year 2035 or whatever, because that's just kind of not, at least for me and the kind of what I deal with in the day-to-day, is not quite on my radar yet. I don't know if like our programs director has been talking about that yet. Really, the limitation for us in terms of the number of trees we can plant per year is actually the availability of the physical trees to plant. The New York City Parks is like by a considerable margin, the largest purchaser of the type and kind of tree that we do plant. And we're basically buying the entire market of trees that there is. And so the kind of question of scaling up is almost not really a funding question. It's just a question of having the physical trees able to plant it all.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And just as long as you have enough funding, but again, logistically, that's where your challenges. I'll leave it in your good, capable hands. As long as funding is there, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure I have a lot of colleagues who would appreciate more funding, but we're really fortunate in tree planting to be to be kind of secure in the capital dollars that we use to execute this work.
All right, that's great. I look forward for more trees now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Assemblyman.
Awesome. Any additional questions? Oh, yes, Natasha.
Hi, Mitch. Thank you for coming this evening. When will parks officially stop taking requests for new street tree planting?
We stopped taking those requests about a year ago. So
Okay, so if people call 311 and say, I want to have this tree planted here, they'll be told by the operator that Parks is no longer taking any requests?
that's correct.
All right, I just want to be prepared because I'm pretty sure after that phone call, they're going to call our office to find out why they're not taking no more requests. I just want to be prepared. So I might be reaching out to you at a later date.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, we're happy to give you like the elevator pitch for what to kind of say in response to that.
Thank you. I'm going to need that. My second question is regarding the new planting program that Parks is going to be implementing. I know you mentioned something about getting like community groups involved as far as like helping maintain the tree. And I just wanted to make a comment. A lot of resistance that parks may get, or the city in general, from property owners is because they're worried about the damage to their sidewalk with a tree being planted there. Um, Especially when DOT goes out and inspects their sidewalks and they end up getting a fine. So what is a property owner to do in that case when the sidewalk is damaged is because of the tree that's growing there? Like, what is their recourse?
Yeah. So in the case of an existing tree, so not like a new one that we're going in and planting, but just one that's already there damaging the sidewalk, the as far as like direct advice to property owners, like if a 311 request is submitted documenting the condition, my understanding is that either DOT will not issue a fine, or they can follow up, show that they made the city aware of the damage here, and it will be waived. I don't work directly on the sidewalk damage repair team, so I'm not 100% sure of all the details, but and what I do know is that just notifying the city of the damage, which is most easily done via 311 request, is the kind of first step to kind of reducing the liability, at least if it's a tax class 1, so single multifamily home property. Submitting the 311 also request means it'll also get an inspection by a member of our sidewalk repair team. Because of that team's limited capacity, they can only repair the very highest needs, which they determine that through kind of a formula that looks at like the pedestrian volume level, the extent of the damage, the health of the tree that's there. And so the sidewalks that, according to the formula, are most in need, those will be repaired or can be repaired at no cost by the city of New York. But it does take a while, and it's only a kind of, a small portion that we actually have the capacity to do. For all the others, if the homeowner undertakes a independent repair at their own cost, they can submit a claim to the comptroller's office within 90 days of the repair to get reimbursed for those costs if the damage was caused by a city tree. As far as new trees go, a couple things that we do differently now that we didn't do 50 years ago. One is that we place an emphasis on installing large tree beds, which gives the trees more rooting space. It makes it less likely that they're going to damage sidewalks over time. And another aspect of evaluating our species selection is that when there is somewhat more limited space, we make sure we choose a tree that doesn't have a history of damaging sidewalks when it gets larger, because some trees have different kind of form root systems closer to the surface than others, and those that form them closer to the surface are more likely to damage sidewalks over time. So as we kind of allocate species, when we know that's a risk, we'll make sure to plant something that's less likely to cause damage over time.
Thank you very much.
I just have one question. Sorry if I missed this in the presentation, but do we know when CB7, when the trees in our district will be serviced?
Yeah, so for planting, basically 1/3 of the district will be serviced every 3 years. So the first kind of phase is 2027 to 29, and then 2030 to 32, and then 33 to 35. In each of those phases, 1/3 of the district will be serviced, and the kind of detailed map showing exactly what portion of the district will be serviced when, those are on our website, and I can send the link to the board after this so you can look at the particular areas you might be interested in.
So much.
So regarding under the new program, the trees would get serviced every 3 years in our district. Now, I know usually for tree pruning, that's run through the forestry division. Is that still going to be the same under this new program?
Correct. So this, kind of like I said with the service request, this really only deals with tree planting, and we're also just going to use the opportunity of us being on the block to do some of the other kind of ancillary work, like some removals and these filling in unplantable tree beds. The forestry offices are still going to be doing their 7-year pruning cycle, so we're not doing any pruning, and they're also still going to be doing tree removals for hazard mitigation. So if there's a tree that's, a hazard for whatever reason, because, it's dead and over a playground or something, like we're not going to wait for the cycle to remove that. The forestry office is still going to kind of follow like a risk mitigation prioritization system to address those kind of regardless of the cycle. So what we'd be picking up is like the small dead trees that aren't really a significant hazard, just stumps that have been there for years, but stuff that is, posing a hazard is going to be addressed in a more timely manner based on the level of hazard. And then pruning will still happen kind of on its own entire separate cycle.
Thank you. Oh, hold on, let me get you the mic.
Thank you, Mitch. Hello, everyone. My name is Liang Liang. I actually from Center for Family Life. I am a social worker, and I am also living here. So today, actually, I bring a question from one of the group currently I'm running, Spanish-speaking and Chinese-speaking community study circle, because, NYC Park and the tree planning actually are always the top topics our community members are very concerning. So I felt like NYC Park work and this new approach are closely connected to the daily lives of community residents. I would like to understand beyond today's board meeting, on what platforms or any other methods this approach and its updates will be shared so that community members can better understand and engage with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for the question. So another advantage, something we're hoping to take advantage of with this more kind of targeted approach is that since we can predict, well in advance exactly where we're going to be in a given year, in a given planting season, kind of in the lead up to that, our communications teams will do outreach to institutions like the community board, like established friends groups, but also we're always looking for other opportunities to engage the community directly in advance of the work that we're going to perform. So that way we can kind of course, one, just make them aware, allow them to engage with the work we're doing, address concerns, hear out feedback, and as well just, give the opportunities to also, be participants in the kind of, just like be, democratic participants. And so if you know of like specific organizations within your community or the one that you're directly involved with that you think would be a good for us to engage with as we plan to do work in Sunset Park, feel free to reach out to me via the community board, and we'll make sure that our communications teams can make that available and make it available in the target languages of the groups you work with.
Thank you so much, Mitch. Actually, I have two more not that relevant question to the new approach and your presentation. One actually is from our youth program and our caregivers group. They told us if there are any possible, they can learn some of the name of the tree. So I'm wondering, you share that the tree will be more diverse than before. And I would like to know if the small tree, the new tree will put the sign to, on one hand to do community education, let community members know the new approach have already launched. On the other hand, is there any possible to set the sign to let people know what kind of tree actually is growing up to, to show hope to them?
Yeah, I mean, so we've experimented with a couple different approaches to that in the past. So some of the trees that were planted like 10, 15 years ago, there were these like plastic tags on them that I think they had like a QR code you could scan and it would take you to a website that would tell you what the tree is and stuff like that. Those had some issues because they had sharp edges and then the wind would blow and it would like scratch the trunk and leave this wound. So we stopped doing that. We recently started experimenting with paper tags where when we do our like kind of formal inspection after planting, the inspector will write the name of the tree on a tag and attach that to the tree. That has also not proven effective because it just kind of wears away when it rains or snows or whatever. So we're right now kind of in the market for figuring out how we can label the trees with the species, because we agree that that's like an important element of kind of public outreach and helping increase public knowledge and engagement with the work that we do. But so far, we're kind of 0 for 2 on good solutions for doing that.
Thank you so much, Mitch. My last question, probably not related to this approach, but we would like to know who will be the right person we can reach out. Because, you know, from our community study circle, actually, our members are interested in the school gardening and the school tree planting. So I would like to know if that were included in this new approach, or that would be another approach or planning currently NYC Parks are doing.
That would be separate from what my team handles. We just handle trees planted in the public right of way, so along sidewalks and then kind of within New York City Parks parkland. If you have the community board reach out to me with your question, I'll make sure that we can get you a better complete answer, because I'm not prepared with one right now. But yeah, if you just reach out to me, I'll make sure that you get an answer.
Good to know. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Any last questions? Yeah. Oh, wait, can we?
I volunteer in Sunset Park. My group is the Sunset Park Healing Hands Garden Group, and we take care of the 9/11 Memorial and the Japanese Garden and another garden by 41st and 6th Avenue. We need help. I don't know if this is the right forum for this, but I'm looking for volunteers. We have another gentleman named Jason. I don't have his last name with me, but he does cleanup on Saturday mornings in Sunset Park. So I don't know if that helps anybody, or like I said, I just missed the whole meeting. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Does anyone have any more questions before we move forward? None? Are there anyone on Zoom?
Anybody have on Zoom that has any questions? Please raise your hand now before we go into our next agenda item. Going once, going twice. No question.
So much, Mitch. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for having me, and thanks for the great questions, great engagement. I will follow up with the link to the maps, and then if you have any follow-up questions for me, happy to hear those and answer those. So thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, awesome. Let's move to the second item on the agenda. Esteban and I will actually be giving a presentation on our community cleanup group, which I think might be interesting to you, Sylvia, of Cleanup Sunset Park, of our activities of last year, of this year, and how to set up community cleanup groups in case anyone is interested in creating their own. So we'll put up the presentation now. Okay. Okay. You want to get started, or?
Yeah, I can start. If you want to go to the next slide, Natasha. So it'll be a short presentation, and what we'll start with is just our mission statement and kind of what drew me and Diana to this work. We'll talk a little bit about the Sanitation Foundation and their grantee program. We'll look at some of the events that we did last year and talk a little bit about what we have planned for goals for 2026.
So our mission statement is our organization is committed to creating a clean community. Is it on?
Hold on, having some technical difficulties. You back up? Yep. Okay. Go ahead.
Mission statement. Our organization is committed to creating a clean community by addressing persistent street cleanliness issues. We were formed to advocate for improved sanitation and environmental conditions, recognizing the direct impact clean streets have on public health and quality of life. Basically, what drew me to this, to even joining the community board, was I noticed that when you walk from Sunset Park to Park Slope or Sunset Park to Bay Ridge, their neighborhoods are noticeably cleaner than ours, and I think that's pretty unacceptable. So I wanted to actually take action and do something about that. So that's why we started Clean Up Sunset Park. Moving on to the next slide. So, do you want to talk about that? Okay. We applied for the Sanitation Foundation Starter Kit grant last year. Basically, we got these tools listed on the left side of the screen, just as a quick starter pack to get us started in cleaning, because I really had no idea what I was doing. And as part of the grant, we received virtual training, in-person meetups. We also received office hours with the Sanitation Foundation staff. Oh, before I continue, the Sanitation Foundation is the nonprofit arm of DSNY. So they do a lot of advocacy work. They work together with cleanup groups to kind of help promote a cleaner city. And as part of the grant, we also received like access to the community stewards network, access to their volunteer hub. So if anyone is interested, we can provide those links in case you want to see what other cleanup groups are doing or what other cleanup events are going on in the city. And we received like the opportunity to kind of adopt your spot. So for anyone that is involved in cleanup work, you can kind of commit to just cleaning up certain areas of your neighborhood, and they'll help you with that as well. As part of the grant, we were required to complete, I think, 3 successful cleanup groups, and we had public cleanup groups, cleanup events, sorry. And I think we actually did 5 last year, so that was great. We were supposed to give this presentation back in February because that's when the grant was still open. So for this year, if you wanted to apply, that was closed, but applications will be open, I guess, next year. And you can go to the link at the bottom of the slide. So www.sanitationfoundation.org//community stewards. And we can go to the next slide. No, it froze. Yes.
So we're just going to highlight 3 of the events that we did last year. The first one that we did was in May on 3rd Avenue between 54th and 56th Street. So a very small catchment area of 2 blocks. But in those 2 blocks, we were able to collect 90 pounds of trash. And we also submitted 3 311 reports for sharps within those tree beds. So kind of just highlighting here the amount of trash that is along the BQE and the 3rd Avenue corridor. And then just the issues with public safety when it comes to sharps and needles in some of these areas, and how unsafe that can be with people walking through these streets. And there's a little before and after. We were able to remove this tree gator, which are typically used to help water trees during times of drought. But in this tree in particular, the gator had become too small and started cutting off some of the tree trunk. So we did remove that.
Then our next event was on August 30th, 2025. We actually worked with Councilmember Alexa Avilas's office for this cleanup event, which was great. We were right in front of Sunset Park, so maybe some people saw us there. We had 10 volunteers, and together we collected around 198 pounds of trash. We also cleaned up some of like the tree beds, so you can see that in the top right-hand corner. And yeah, it was wonderful. A lot of people who saw us that morning came, and even if they weren't signed up, they wanted to join in. So just to see the level of community engagement was wonderful. So it shows that if people see that you're cleaning, taking care of the neighborhood, other people will get involved. And then we can go to the next slide, please.
And then for our last event in October, we partnered with the council member's office and Big Reuse to do street tree care along that same corridor on Fifth Avenue in front of Sunset Park. We had 20 volunteers come out, and we were able to clean and mulch 10 tree beds along the front of the park. So if you can see there, they have fresh mulch, which is great for trees, especially over the winter, and had a really good turnout for this one.
Oh, great. So for our goals for this year, we want to create a more routine schedule for cleanups, and we're hoping to start every Saturday of each month, starting in May, right? Because we have our tree care series with Big Reuse. We'll be around the Sunset Park entrance on May 2nd. Then on May 16th, we'll be on the corner between of Fifth Avenue and 23rd Street. And then May 30th will be around the entrance of Rainbow Park. So we wanted to make sure we hit like all areas of the district, but we're always open to hitting different locations if anyone has some recommendations.
Yeah, and then our last goal is just to continue to expand our partner network and program in targeted areas. You guys can help. One, by just emailing us at cleanupsunsetpark@gmail.com with areas that you think could use some more support for either community cleanup or street tree care, and then just attend one of our events. They are great opportunities to socialize with people from the community and kind of get your hands dirty with tree care or trash.
Part of a community cleanup group or doing anything involved with this kind of work, we'd be happy to partner up. So please let us know. Like, we're always happy to help. Any questions? Oh, 1 second. We gotta give you them. Yeah.
So, St. Michael's, I'm from St. Michael's Church, and we have a group of kids that are gonna be doing a cleanup, a work day on May 2nd. So I am going to have a lot of kids with adults. So I'm looking at 80 to 100 that day. So if you guys have some work, I have some people. So I just wanted to share that.
That would be amazing.
I still have to confirm it with the director, but I don't think it would be a problem. Okay? Okay.
Cool. Yeah. The more hands, the more trees that can get cared for.
Have to coordinate.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead. We're gonna give you the mic.
Do you guys have flyers for your cleanup events?
Yes, they're still being worked on, but we'll definitely like post them around the neighborhood, and also we can distribute in like the community board. We just don't want to create more trash, Yeah.
Very fair. Thank you.
Hopefully we'll have a Instagram soon, so then we can also start posting on that as well, on updates.
Online. Carrie Conti, if you can just unmute yourself.
Hi. So we do a lot of cleanups like that around 5th and 23rd. So I will email you so we can partner on that if you're interested. The thing that I've noticed though when we do these is literally the next day there's trash again all over the streets. So I'm wondering if you found any way to kind of, I know trash begets more trash. And so what you're doing is great. But I'm wondering if you found any ideas to kind of keep the trash away once you've cleaned it up, because it's, you know, we haven't been able to manage that aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely difficult, especially when you think of industrial business zones, which is a lot of the waterfront, tend to create a lot of trash. One thing that does tend to help, especially with tree beds, is tree guards, at least keeping the trash out of the bed. And it's something that we want to work a little bit more on and see how we can help install more tree guards within the neighborhood.
Yeah, for the tree beds, I also wanted to mention one thing that we've done is gotten donations from the Staten Island Native Plant Center so that you can fill the tree beds with plants and natives, you know, beyond the mulch. So they do give donations to community groups for tree beds.
Yeah, that's a cool place. I've been there a few times, and it's definitely a really cool resource.
And I think to your point about just cleaning up and then the next day it's filled with trash again, I think a lot of it has to do with education. I don't know exactly how we would tackle that because like the people who care are the people involved. So I just hope that by being like a more like constant presence, like people will see like, oh, others do care about our community, so we should also put in our part. But yeah, I would love to explore and tackle this more in depth if people are interested.
I have Annabelle Prim. Could you unmute yourself? And you have 3 minutes to speak.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm wondering what problems do you encounter and how do you plan to solve them?
A little bit more specific, Annabelle, like problems when we do our cleanup events.
Like, maybe you want more resources or something? Like,
Yeah, so we applied for another grant from the Sanitation Foundation this year. We haven't heard back yet, but basically it's like a step up from their starter kit grant. And that kit would kind of help us customize what the other tools that we need uh in our inventory, because basically when we do these events with like council member Alexa Vilas's office or the big reuse, we rely on them for a lot of like the supplies. So we kind of work around their schedule, which is why we can't, do our events as often as we'd like. So maybe that would be one thing. Do you have any other challenges that we faced so far? Maybe just the amount of trash too. Like there's a lot of trash in Sunset Park and it's just hard to stay on it. But yeah.
You have any other questions or comments, Annabelle?
I think that was it. Yeah.
Thank you.
As a volunteer, I deliver the newspaper along 3rd Avenue, and there's almost no bins, public bins, and I don't know if you have any power over that because it is really a horrible place to walk along, but it's still a vibrant community. If we can request that they actually put out bins, is there any known constraints for why they haven't?
What location?
3rd Avenue between the Costco and 55th Street. On either side, there's no bins.
Yeah, so I've asked about this before and I've heard like mixed things. I've heard that people actually steal the bins and like you recycle them for money, which is crazy because I know they're heavy, but people want to make a quick buck, I guess. I don't know.
The community board can reach out to the Department of Sanitation to get a concrete answer as to why there are no waste baskets on such a long corridor, and we'll get back to you.
Need me to write an email so you have evidence.
That would be great if you could send us an email so that way it's on the record. I'll give you our email address in a few minutes. Anybody has any questions? You can just pass the microphone to her, please.
Yes, I just want to share a comment about community education because we heard from a youth program and some of the caregivers told us they feel like sometimes they were sent there like a teenager or themselves to do the cleanup. Actually, they want to have a short training because that training probably will first of all let them know where they're gonna go to clean up, and they will know they're being as a team to clean up together. And I also feel like it's a way to value their contribution to the community because sometimes I hear back from them they feel like they just pick up the trash, but it seems like they are not valued, and they may have hard time to very take it into them and share them out. So I echo to the Carrie said, like it seems like the next day there will be like more trash, but I do agree with you. Talked about community education is super important, like resources and train them and let them feel like they do something matter, so they would like to share. Thank you
So much for sharing.
Um, the opportunities are in the PTA meetings, finding out when they're having them. They're usually at night. We have some great schools around here. Just reaching out to them. Sunset High School, the middle school, and having some type of workshop or something. Middle school, PS24 helped me plant daffodils. Middle school helped me plant daffodils and helped me in Sunset Park in the garden. Um, and it gives them an opportunity to be part of the community. It really helps a lot. And I've actually reached out to the shelters, and I've had the shelter on 49th Street. It's a man's shelter on 49th between 2nd and 3rd, and they've helped me out. But I don't put them, it's separate. Adults and children, two different things we do. Okay. So that I just wanted to throw that out.
Great ideas. Thank you.
I guess I'll throw this out as a general question. Do you think it would be helpful to kind of learn what we can or can't recycle in Sunset Park? Like what trash actually is? We took a tour of the Sunset Park materials recycling facilities, I think is what it's called. It was really cool, and I learned so much about what can and can't be recycled. And I think that would just be informative. But I wanted to see if there was like an appetite for that before we kind of reach out and see if we can schedule something like that. Oh, okay, yeah. So we'll
Where you set up the tour, how many people will be in the tour? What are the consensus for that thing?
or have them come here and present if that works for other people. I think that might be a little easier since everyone works during the day. I understand. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah, of course.
Oh, one idea that's just been in my brain, but I don't know how to do it. But I was just thinking about it with what you were just saying. Maybe one day when we do have a pickup, when we do have a cleanup, take and separate as we're cleaning, separate things so it won't be harder. Separate the glass, separate the cans, separate the cigarette butts, separate everything. It's a little tedious in a sense, but then at the end of the day, put a pile of this here, put a pile of this here, and the visual on that would be like insane. I've always wanted to do that, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Have to plan it. It can be done. Okay. Awesome. Gotta stop saying awesome. Is it?
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. All right. Well, I think that was it for us.
Yeah.
Want to thank you guys so much for coming. This was wonderful. I appreciate all of your engagement. Thank you. Oh, one last question.
That'll be at the next meeting.
April 20th. They had to reschedule because they were coming in from the Bronx and just couldn't do it.
Yes, they'll be here April 20th. The next Parks Committee meeting will be here, same space, same time, 6:30, and they'll be presenting then.
About that. All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a great evening.
And just one more thing before you go, if you want to know for more information on the next Parks Committee meeting on April 20th, sign the sign-in sheet in the back, leave your email address in legible handwriting, please. We'll add you to our email list to receive notices of upcoming meetings. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.